Welcome back. We're going to talk about the most unpredictable team in the NBA, maybe all of sports, the Brooklyn Nets. I have not talked to you guys since the game the Nets gave up a franchise high 153 points versus Sacramento. And since then, they've been 3-1. They got the win at Portland, the Royce O'Neal putback. That was an awesome game. Memphis, they won on Sunday with most of Memphis' stars out. Then last night versus Philadelphia, one of the worst Nets losses I've seen. I don't want to say in a long time because they lost some bad ones last year too, but tonight they bounced back on a back-to-back on the road at Toronto. But once again, the Raptors had like nobody playing. The Nets have definitely had a lot, and I mean a lot of bad injury luck the past 2-3 years, but I would say the last 3 games or so, luck has been on the Nets side with injuries. I mean, they didn't have to face Jaren Jackson. They didn't have to face Desmond Bane. They didn't have to face John Morant with the Grizzlies. They didn't have to face James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. And then tonight, it was no Siakam, no Van Vliet, no Scotty Barnes, no Otto Porter. I mean, that's like 10 guys right there that are good NBA players, some great. But yeah, I mostly want to spend time on last night's game versus the Sixers and some of tonight versus the Raptors because it kind of just coincides with how unpredictable the Nets are. I mean, the Nets, up until halftime of today's game, played 6 quarters in a row of looking like complete garbage. I mean, the game versus Philly, they just looked disinterested, weren't communicating. They just had that vibe that they can just show up and win. They didn't have to play the game. And, of course, the Sixers beat them with a great shooting night. The Sixers got off like 19, 20 more shots because they got so many offensive rebounds. And I think there was a stat that the Sixers were like the worst offensive or maybe just rebounding team in general. And the Nets, of course, got killed on the boards. And they definitely let up a fair share of second chance points tonight, especially in the second half. But I said the first 6 quarters, including last night's game, because the Nets came out of halftime today versus the Raptors looking like a completely different team. And that's what we have to see going forward. That's why, for me, it's so hard to give up on this team because they are so talented, and we see stretches and spurts from this team like we saw in the third quarter where they went on multiple like large runs. There was like a 12-0 run, there might have been like another 10-0 run or something. The Nets put together these runs where it's like they're really good, and then they put together games like the Sixers won in the first half of this game where it's like they are freaking terrible. Like they are not coached well. They don't want to be here. They're not trying. Kyrie looks disengaged. Joe Harris is washed. And Joe Harris might still be washed. We'll go over that later. But still, that's the problem with this team. They're so inconsistent, and it's frustrating because you know they're good enough to be great. I mean, I'm not saying they're like Boston or Milwaukee great or even Cleveland now, but the Nets, there's no reason why the Nets can't be a top 5 team in the East. I mean, they're fighting to get into the play-in right now. They are almost back to 500. They can't get there. They've almost been there a couple times, but they're back to 9-10. But it's so annoying because they are so talented, but they can never put it together consistently. And they lose these games like the Sixers won last night that they have no business losing. Like they should be on a 4-game win streak right now. They should be over 500. The vibes should be great. But now it's like, you blew one last night versus Philly. That should not have happened. So anyway, I rambled there, but leave a like, 5 stars on the podcast. I'd appreciate that. And let's get into it. Let's just start with last night's game versus Philly. So we'll just go from the bad, get that out of the way, and then we'll go to the good, which was the second half of tonight. But yeah, the Nets didn't shoot the 3-ball well last night. I mean, they were 9 for 28. Philly shot 50%. They were 16 to 32. That's a big part of it, but the Nets had a tough time closing out. There were some plays they just were supposed to switch, and they didn't switch. There was one in the fourth quarter where KD may have been passing off Tobias Harris, and they left him wide open on top of the key. And he was surprised how open he was. He kind of paused there for a second and said, all right, I'll take it. And then Tobias Harris made the 3. Tobias, by the way, awesome second half. I mean, I thought he was done with that ankle injury, but he came back and he was great. I think he scored like 16 points in the fourth quarter, maybe second half. I don't know, but he was awesome. But anyway, the Nets had 19 less shots than the Sixers. The Sixers took 99 shots in that game. The Nets took 80. The Nets did make more shots, but a lot less three-pointers, which is pretty important. Philly had 49 rebounds to the Nets 35, so being out-rebounded by 14, being outshot by 19. Philly had 20 offensive rebounds. The Nets had 4. I mean, that's why you lose games right there. Nets had 5 more turnovers. It wasn't a talent thing. The Nets obviously with the Sixers' 3 best players out, are the more talented team. By the way, if anyone cares, the Nets have 4 straight games with 30-plus assists. That's the highest mark in franchise history since 1987. So I guess that's nice. But yeah, you saw last night's game, and it was just so annoying because, 4 straight wins was right there. Should have happened. Should be over 500 right now. It's early. I get it. It's November 23rd. I shouldn't be freaking out too much, but this team is annoying because it's like they're always going 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And literally every single time I've been getting excited for the Nets this year, they just always just laugh in my face, and they come out and have a terrible performance. Like, I remember that Saturday night game early in the season versus the Pacers, probably the game that got Steve Nash fired. And you're thinking it's the Pacers. I mean, the Pacers at that point, they weren't good. I know now they're pretty good, but at that point, they weren't figured to be a good team. And the Nets lost that game in very frustrating fashion, played no defense. It got Nash fired, so I guess it is what it is. But then even the Lakers game, I know it was a back-to-back, but coming off that Clippers win during that Saturday afternoon game versus the Clippers, and then playing in the same arena the next day, maybe they were out partying in LA, I have no idea. But to lose that game to the Lakers, who didn't have LeBron, I mean, I get they're playing pretty well without him, but still, then get blown out by Sacramento. And then you have 2 nice wins here, Portland, Memphis. I'm feeling good about this team again. I'm like, all right, we're getting the Sixers without Maxey. We're getting the Sixers without Harden. You find out later, right before the game, I guess, that Joel Embiid is out. And it's like, this is a 3-game win streak. We're back. And then, they completely crap the bed against the Sixers, and it's annoying. So I'm sure what will happen now, knowing the Nets, they will win at Indiana. They'll win versus Portland. And then for some reason, they'll lose to Orlando. That is something the Nets would absolutely do based on how this year has gone and the past few years, because they always tend to lose games that they should not lose. And I do think, part of it was the Nets playing down to their competition level. I think they probably knew about the injuries the Sixers had in that game and were like, yeah, we can sleepwalk and win this game. We're facing DeAnthony Melton, Shake Milton, PJ Tucker, Thibault. We're good. We got this. And we ain't really got to try. We're the Brooklyn Nets. We got KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons now. We're good. And no, they had to learn the hard way. And I do hope that loss gets to them and they realize you can't take nights off in this league. But, every time I think they learn their lesson, they go back and do the same stuff they always do. But all right, let's get to tonight's game now and transition to that. Nets get the 112-98 victory. First half was very concerning, I'm not going to lie. Second chance points right off the bat. Jacque Vaughn took a timeout with, I think, 10 minutes and 12 seconds remaining in the first quarter. So right away, a very quick timeout. And it happened because, the Nets were getting points offensively. They had no problem scoring. But defensively, they allowed a rebound, and it was a kick out to a three-pointer. They made it, so that's a second chance point right there. That's 3 of them. And then the second one was more of a long rebound. It was a very short shot that kicked out to the three-point line. So, okay, I kind of forgive that one more. But still, the Raptors' first 6 points were on 2 threes that were second chance points. And based on how the previous night went versus the Sixers, I'm sure Jacque Vaughn, they talked about that and didn't like what he was seeing right away and was like, all right, we got to talk about this. And I guess that's been one good thing about Jacque Vaughn. He is noticeably better than Steve Nash, but that doesn't really mean he's a great coach by any means. But I do think the Nets are a more well-coached team now than they were just a few weeks ago with Steve Nash, so it's a step in the right direction. Would I have preferred Ime Udoka and still do? Yeah, but it is what it is now. It's going to be Jacque Vaughn the rest of the year at least, and hopefully it works out. But it seems like so far they are at times playing hard for him. They're playing more as a team, and I just think there's just better camaraderie with the team and things like that. So I do hope it's moving in the right direction with Jacque Vaughn. But of course, when you have Ime Udoka sitting out there, you're like, I want that guy, but didn't work out for obvious reasons. So one Jacque Vaughn thing that really annoyed me tonight was when the second quarter started out, the Nets were up 12 at that point too. So they had a nice cushion, so maybe this factored into it. But Jacque Vaughn puts out a lineup of Kyrie Irving, Patty Mills, and Joe Harris. I forget the other 2 guys. It may have been, who was it? It might have been Claxton and somebody. I don't know, but I forget. But the point is, you can't play lineups, especially against the Raptors, the team that has a bunch of guys that are 6'8", through 6'10", that are athletic and play good defense and can make smaller teams look really bad. You can't do it really at all, but especially in this one. And when you play Kyrie, Patty, and Joe, there's defensive liabilities everywhere. Especially Patty Mills, who I don't think played much in this game. Let me take a look. I know we saw Patty in that second quarter for a bit, but he really didn't seem to play that many minutes. Patty played 6 minutes, so he kind of got a quick hook, which, was the right thing. And I do think, with Steve Nash, it was more like he had his built-in rotations, and it wasn't really based on performance. Jacque Vaughn, if you're not playing well and he sees something going on and you're not good for this particular game or game plan, he won't play you as much. So at least, as I said, there is actual coaching going on as compared to what Steve Nash was doing. I'm not saying that Vaughn is doing a great job, but at least when he sees this is not working for this particular game or matchup, I'm not playing you. And he saw pretty early that Patty Mills was not going to be good for this game. So anyway, he starts the second quarter with that lineup of 3 defenders that can't play together, and the Raptors went on a 13-0 run. The Nets gave the lead right back, and then from there on out, throughout the second quarter, it was just a back-and-forth game. Of course, I got nervous because, we saw what happened the previous night, so I'm thinking, here we go again. The Nets did have 8 turnovers in the first 17 minutes of the game. I forget what they finished with, but I'll look it up in a second, but I just know that early on the turnovers were terrible. Kevin Durant was vocal in this game. Usually he's, saying stuff to fans or just with the refs, but it was his own teammates tonight. And I kind of liked it. Of course, you worry about, are they getting along and things like that. But KD definitely held his teammates accountable tonight. Kyrie, of course, went for a steal when he shouldn't have. He called him out for that. There was a play where KD called out Joe Harris. I forget why, but it was in the first quarter. And he did the same thing with Claxton. He called out Ben Simmons, not Claxton, because Ben Simmons was supposed to help on a rebound, and he was kind of just standing there. So KD called out 3 guys in the first quarter. So I do like seeing that, of course. You would hope that coaches can do that more, but teams do need guys on the floor, especially well-respected players like Kevin Durant, that can call out their teammates and hold people accountable, because this team needs that. We even saw it last night versus the Sixers. Kevin Durant called out Kyrie Irving on a defensive rotation where the Sixers made a 3 from the left wing. So at least we're seeing some type of communication going on here. That's a step in the right direction. And speaking of Durant, he had so many dumb passes tonight. I could think of at least 3, maybe 4, just dumb Kevin Durant passes that were telegraphed. He had a sick pass to Claxton. I think Durant was getting double teamed near half court, maybe the 3-point line, and he threw this awesome, just put some English on it, bounced past the Claxton for a dunk. So yeah, KD made some nice passes in this game, but also made some terrible ones. There was one to Sumner where KD got the rebound and he just tried to kick it out with it was a weird pass. He passed it across his body and he threw it out of bounds, and Sumner had trouble getting it and it rolled out of bounds. So I get he was trying to push the pace and get the Nets in transition, but it's just unnecessary turnover. The Nets were beating themselves throughout the first half of this game. It was frustrating because you can tell they were the much better team talent-wise, but they were beating themselves in a lot of ways, and the stupid turnovers were a part of that. So at halftime, the Nets had 13 turnovers. When you're on pace for 26 turnovers, that's god-awful. Toronto had 11 offensive rebounds at half. The Nets only had 3. And also at halftime, Toronto had 24 second chance points. The Nets only had 4. So it's things like that, just not small parts of the game, but just these attention to detail type things that if they get these right, I think the Nets could be a good team. For now they're healthy. I can't trust these guys to stay healthy, obviously, based on what we've seen here the past couple of years. But for now, at least, minus TJ Warren, minus Utah Watanabe, which sucks. He has a hamstring strain now. Just that gives me James Harden flashbacks. But outside of that, this team is healthy. They have their big 3 intact, which is the most important part. Kyrie in the first half just looked mentally checked out. I was a little concerned. I was in net spaces at halftime on Twitter. There were people talking about Kyrie's done, he is done with this team. But he completely changed that narrative in the second half. He had a great second half, Kyrie. Believe he finished with 29 points. He was a plus 16, shot 11 for 16 overall, 5 of 8 from 3. I think Kyrie is shooting a career low from 3-point range this year. It was 29%, maybe lower. So Kyrie, he's a good shooter. We saw the guy have a 50, 40, 90 season a couple of years ago. So Kyrie, he'll get it together, but it was nice to see him shoot the ball well in this game. And a lot of Kyrie's points, usually with Kyrie, it's they come from isolation situations. And yeah, there were some, but I think a lot of Kyrie's points were more in the flow of the offense tonight. So So that, of course, is a great sign. And as I mentioned before, the Nets have been playing more like a team since Jacques Vaughn took over. So that's definitely a positive, because when this team plays like a team, makes them even better. We've seen so many easy dunks for Claxton and even Ben Simmons lately because they are just moving the ball very well. There's been a lot of open Joe Harris shots. He doesn't make them now, but still, he's getting the open looks. And even Royce O'Neal, he's getting a lot of open looks, and he's knocking them down for the most part. Royce O'Neal, I know some fans are kind of anti-Royce O'Neal. I don't get why, but he has been awesome. Like, he had a really bad game versus the Kings, and maybe the game before that, which was, I think, the Lakers. But like outside of those two games, I don't really have many complaints about Royce O'Neal this year. I think he's been better than what we could have hoped for so far this season. So Royce O'Neal's having a career year. It's a bigger role on this team, obviously. But even the assist, I mean, even tonight, he had 7 assists. He had a triple-double the other night versus Portland. I mean, the guy is even like, I don't think Royce O'Neal's ever been an assist guy, but now he is, and it's actually, I love seeing it. He also had 4 steals tonight. I remember he had one where it was a really nice anticipation play by him. He stuck his arm out, popped the ball up, got the steal. So yeah, I mean, he's been awesome. Even Ben Simmons had a couple of great steals tonight. Speaking of Simmons, there was that play versus the Sixers last night. Actually, I didn't even touch on the whole Simmons going back to Philly thing. It kind of escaped my mind. You know, I don't want to turn this into like an ESPN talk show because, like, you know, why would you guys come here for that? But still, you know, Ben Simmons, of course, the whole narrative would have been, if he had a bad game versus Philly, is that, oh, Ben Simmons is mentally weak and it'll never work out for him. This guy is just, he can't handle the big moments and things like that. And Ben Simmons, right away from the jump, was playing, I think, the best on the team. I think Ben probably had the best game of any net last night. He was a -9. Most guys were in the negatives, but he had 11 points. He was 4 of 7 from the field. He was 3 of 6 at the line, which I guess you'll take with Ben Simmons, but 7 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. And yeah, one of those steals, it was such an awesome play. I think it was to close out the third quarter maybe, and Simmons dove on the floor and kicked it out to Kevin Durant, who was leaking out for a KD dunk. It reminded me of like a Jason Kidd type play. It was one of those type plays. So, yeah, Simmons wanted that game last night, which makes it even worse. You would hope in his return to Philly that his teammates would play equally as hard as he would, but you didn't see it. So I felt bad for Ben, but he definitely was not the reason they lost. And one of the furthest things from it. But, you know, Ben didn't shoot the ball in the fourth quarter. And, of course, you saw some memes about that Simmons wasn't shooting the ball in the fourth quarter, but let's be honest, the Nets overall in the fourth quarter were terrible. They scored 24 points as a team, so I don't want to put it on Simmons. I thought the guy played very well last night. But anyways, so after halftime of tonight's game versus Toronto, the Nets looked like a completely different team. They stuck with that starting lineup for a lot of the third quarter, the KD, Royce, Claxton, Irving, Simmons lineup. And I still have my concerns about Claxton and Simmons playing in the same lineup, but you can already tell the difference because the reason that lineup was so bad the first, 5-7 games, whatever, was because Ben Simmons was not looking like Ben Simmons. He was looking like 30% of Ben Simmons. He was looking like Walmart Draymond Green. Like, he was not good. And now that Ben Simmons is moving and just, playing with confidence and pushing the ball in transition, it is getting to a point where playing Simmons and Claxton is more doable. It's not perfect because you still have 2 guys on the floor that can't shoot the ball. But at least if Simmons is moving around and not just standing there and looking like a guy that's hurt, this actually can kind of work. There will be matchups where that lineup won't work as well, and there will be times where you need the extra shooting, so you put in Joe Harris, assuming he gets his crap together, or even Seth Curry, and replace him for Claxton, or, replace him with Ben Simmons, which, I think you would rather keep Simmons in because he is the better player than Nick Claxton. But you get the point. Like, when Ben Simmons was looking horrible the first 5-7 games this year, playing him and Claxton together, you couldn't do it. It was just such a bad, there was no offensive flow whatsoever. It put way too much pressure on Kyrie, KD, even Royce O'Neal. I think now, at least with Ben looking better and looking healthier, and I still don't know if this is the 100% Ben Simmons. I still think there's places he can go up from here, but he looks a whole lot better. I'm trying to think the first game he came out and looked a lot better. I think it might have been the Kings game, ironically. Maybe it was the game after versus Portland, but there was a game where he came out and looked different. because I know he missed one of those games with knee soreness. So I'm trying to remember now, but it was one of those games on the West Coast trip. He made a drive to the basket that we have not seen from him yet in a Nets uniform. And it was like ever since that moment, he has just been like so much better. Even tonight, he had a play in the post where he got the ball, just a little quick turnaround shot off the backboard, makes it. I feel like he wasn't even doing that the first 5 games of the year. Like, he was so indecisive, had no confidence, and now it's getting back. I mean, he's playing really good help defense, Ben Simmons. He's playing good defense overall. He's being a facilitator offensively. Some of his passes are amazing. And he hasn't been that bad at the free throw line yet. I know he missed those 2 free throws in the third quarter at Philly. Got the fans free chicken or whatever the hell it was. So what they call it? They called it bricking for chicken, which I thought was pretty funny, actually. But yeah, so, good for them. But still, I think Ben Simmons has played really well recently, and it makes the ceiling for this Nets team higher. So, I did think eventually Simmons was going to get it together. I was a bit concerned with how long it would take because this Nets team did not have a good record early. It's still not that good. But when the Nets were sitting at 4-9 or whatever the hell their record was, it's like, come on, Ben, we gotta get back to full form here. But yeah, he's looking really good. So they're saying on the graphic here, 5 straight games with 10+ points for Ben Simmons and a 50% field goal percentage or better. Kyrie Irving had 26 in the second half. Wow. KD passed Kevin Garnett for 18th on the all-time scoring list. Good for him. KG, former Net. KD passed KG. Nick Claxton, 6th double-double of the season. Kyrie Irving doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving, if anyone cares. He had to mention that twice in his interview. I don't know why. One guy I want to bring up, Markieff Morris. He was awesome tonight. He played 18 minutes, was 3 of 4 overall, 3 of 4 from 3. He was a +7, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal. He's necessary for this team, especially a team like this that doesn't have enough, not even size, just girth. Guys that are just big, not just tall, because we have taller guys. The Nets starting lineup has 3 guys over 6'10". That's Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, Nick Claxton, but they're all skinny. I think Ben Simmons is the most built out of that group, and Ben Simmons is not even the biggest guy. But at least with Markieff Morris, that's a guy who comes in at 6'9", 245. So 245 is a big boy. So, he's not a guy that you're putting in there just for rebounding. But Markieff Morris, especially if he's making his threes at a decent clip, 35% or better, he's a guy that definitely should be in this rotation more often. I would much rather see him. I know it's a different position, but I would much rather see him than Patty Mills. I just think Markieff Morris is a lot more necessary for this team. I know Seth Curry was out tonight, so that definitely helped Patty maybe play the 6 minutes, or even Edmund Sumner. Sumner kind of made a return to the lineup tonight and played 21 minutes. We saw Cam Thomas for a large stretch in the second quarter, and Sumner actually made some decent plays. He had a nice pass. He had a steal that led to a layup. So there were some good steals by the Nets on defense tonight. Cam Thomas made, a really bad pass at one point, got caught in the air, threw a turnover that led to a fast break bucket, I believe, for the Raptors. But Cam Thomas, he made a couple tough shots, but overall, it's you see it it's easy for me to, play Monday morning quarterback, as they call it, and see the entire broadcast view, but Cam Thomas needs that element of his game where he's a playmaker, because he can get past his guy most times, but it's when he gets past his guy, it's he doesn't know what he's doing after that. He can make tough shots, obviously, which makes Cam Thomas, necessary for this team to play him when they need scoring. But there's also times where Cam Thomas gets by his guy, somebody else helps or collapses, and there's an open kick out, and Cam Thomas just doesn't know where to look, and he doesn't make that pass. So there is a lot of good and bad with Cam Thomas. I get why the coaching staff doesn't consistently play him, but he's a guy that once he gets it together, assuming he's not traded, which of course I guess could happen, that I think has a pretty high ceiling, because the playmaking's missing. And I think once that gets there for him, and even the defensive end, of course, I think he'll be a pretty good player. So I'm excited about him. But Royce O'Neal, another guy playing very well, 5 of 8. His only shots were threes, but 5 of 8 from 3. He had the 7 assists, the 4 steals. He's been awesome, so nothing bad to say about Royce O'Neal. KD had a season-low 12 points. I mean, KD was a +30. That's the highest on the team, but Durant, not the best shooting night. He was 5 of 10. I mean, 50% ain't too bad, but 2 of 5 from 3, 7 rebounds. He just didn't really take that many shots, I guess. That's pretty much the answer to that. Like, Kyrie took 16 shots to Kevin's 10. I guess we'll have the Joe Harris conversation. He has not looked great recently, to put it nicely. And I love Joe. He's been the longest tenured Net. So, I mean, I try not to speak too badly about Joe. So, Joe versus Portland looked good. He was, he made a few threes in the first half, got the offense going. Even in the Memphis game, he wasn't that bad. He shot 66% from 3. The Nets won that game. But the last 2 games here, Joe Harris has really been bad. So versus Memphis, he was 4 of 6 from 3, and versus Portland, he was 4 of 8. But the last 2 games, he has been 1 of 7 and 1 of 6. And if Joe Harris is shooting 1 of 6 and 1 of 7 from 3 and not giving you the best defense, to put it nicely, it's hard to play him. And he's a guy making a lot of money. So, Joe Harris, so many Nets fans are saying, trade this guy, he's a bum. And this, interestingly, was Joe Harris's lowest minutes total of the entire season, I believe. If this is going back far enough. Actually, it is, yeah. So his lowest before this was the first game he came back. Remember, he missed opening night. He came back for game 2 versus the Raptors. He played 18 minutes that night. Tonight, he only played 14 minutes. So Joe Harris was given a chance in the first half to make something happen, but he even played a bit in might have been early fourth quarter, but Joe Harris has to get it together. And I don't know if he will. He's 31. He's coming off 2 ankle surgeries. So I do hope he gets it together, because a team that has the shooting of a healthy Joe Harris and a healthy Seth Curry, that's awesome. They were showing the graphic in the Sixers game that those 2 guys have the highest active 3-point percentage in the NBA. So that's great to have that on the same team. But if Joe Harris is shooting like this, it's going to be hard to play him consistently. Joe from 3 this year is shooting 35, we'll call it 36% from 3. And that's not good enough. Just to tell it how it is. I mean, Joe Harris before this year, well, even before last year, before he got hurt, he was a guy shooting in the mid-40s. I mean, Joe Harris had 3 years in a row of shooting 45% from 3, 46%, 44. He was amazing, and now he's down to 35. And, hoping he gets everything together, and sometimes it takes these guys a while to come off of injury. Ben Simmons is the perfect example, and I'm sure the same thing will happen with TJ Warren, who apparently is, playing 3-on-3 now, so he's getting closer to making that return. But I'm not expecting TJ Warren to be great right away. I mean, I hope he is, but I'm not expecting that because the guy hasn't played in over 2 years. So for Joe Harris, who hadn't played much basketball at all the past year, he probably got hurt right around this time last year, maybe a bit before it. But Joe has not really been a part of this team for the last year. So hopefully he gets it together, because when Joe's playing at a high level, we've seen it before. If you're a Nets fan long enough, I mean, Joe Harris makes a big difference. But if he's playing like this and not making his shots, it's tough. But at least we've seen some games this year where he looks like his old self, but it's just not coming at a consistent level. So yeah, I don't want to speak too much about this. I guess, not many trades are made at this point in the season anyway, but you would think at this rate the Nets will have to get another big. I don't know how they can go the rest of the season like this. It doesn't seem sustainable. Maybe Dwight Howard wasn't the right guy. Maybe Andre Drummond wasn't the right guy. But the fact that the Nets didn't replace Drummond with anybody that can rebound, that's a problem. They tried to sign Markieff Morris, but once again, he's 6'9". I don't think Drummond's that tall, but he's one of the best rebounders of all time by the numbers. So they really heavily relied on Day'Ron Sharpe to be the backup center this year. And you can tell very early that was not going to be the case. You can tell since opening night that Day'Ron Sharpe was not ready for this moment yet. So it is what it is. I think Day'Ron is talented. He'll probably get it together maybe at some point. He made a 3 tonight, had a block I saw in garbage time. So, Day'Ron, he could get it together at some point, but you can't rely on that for this year. He's barely 20 or 21 years old. I do think the Nets will have to test the market, see what's out there. There are rumors about Kelly Olynyk, guys like that. So it's not going to be a big name, I don't think. I mean, of course, the Nets could try and make a huge splash and get a John Collins if he really is available. Or, of course, the name that always comes up, Miles Turner. But if they haven't done that by now, I'm not really expecting that. But I would think Sean Marks has to be aware that this team has a rebounding issue And yeah, they're not really rebounding well as a team. They're not boxing out sometimes. There's a lot of watching the ball. A lot. Like rebounding, so much of rebounding is just like being in the right spots and telegraphing where it's going to go off the rim, finding a body, getting in front of the body. Like that's pretty much what it's about. It's not even just effort, it's technique and effort. So, it helps to be taller, obviously, and bigger, but you don't have to have all that to be a great rebounder. But anyway, the Nets almost get back to 500, back to 9-10. So hopefully by the time I talk to you guys next, they'll be over 500. So the schedule coming up here, they're at Indiana on Friday night. Then it's that long homestand. It's like 7 games in a row at home. Homestand is Portland, Orlando, Washington, Toronto, Boston, Charlotte, Atlanta. So 7-game homestand. And then you have that first game versus the Pacers on the road. I'll try to talk to you guys either after that Orlando game on Monday or Washington. So I guess we'll see how that goes with the schedule and stuff. But anyway, that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoy. Leave in the comments your thoughts about the team. Might be good, might be bad, but I'm interested to see. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I'll talk to you guys next time.